Hi, everyone. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Robyn DeVoe. I am a functional medicine health coach, and I'm here with Melissa Rose today. She's a highly accomplished functional medicine practitioner and the owner of Sagebrush Wellness, as well as the newly minted autoimmunerecovery.org. And today we're going to be talking about the autoimmune condition lupus.
Mm.
And this is the subject that Melissa has had extensive experience researching and working with over the years in her practice. So we're going to have a little chat and share with you all some tidbits on the subject. Melissa, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Robyn. I am so excited to have this conversation. Thank you for taking the lead and just developing everything behind the scenes. So thank you.
Of course. Well, I'm excited to have this conversation as well. Um, can we just take a moment and would you be able to describe, just in general, what lupus is for those that have no idea?
Yes. So lupus is an autoimmune condition that is largely marked by the symptoms, like these are the most prominent, would be like a butterfly rash on the face right here. Sometimes it can be very, very light, especially in the beginning, or if the body isn't in a flare. But in a flare, this can become very marked and hot and angry. Another very common symptom is joint pain.
Hmm.
Like we think of joint pain for things like arthritis, right? But this is like a hot pain and it can move around in the body. It can, like for arthritis, often we think about, it's in one joint or, whatever. But often the pain associated with lupus will move to different joints. And the third thing that is the most common is marked fatigue. Something that sets it apart a little bit from other autoimmune conditions, however, is that it can sometimes carry a fever, like come out of nowhere, a low grade fever. And, the client is going, but I'm not sick.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's one of the differentiators because lupus can be mistaken for quite a number of other autoimmune conditions, but that's one of the hallmarks of, oh, if it's lupus, there can be
Hmm.
a occasional fever or one that just comes up out of the blue.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. That's an important factor to kind of
Yeah.
differentiate it. Because I know it can get confusing. There's so many different
Oh
ones out
gosh, yeah.
yeah, how can you know? So that's an important point.
Yeah.
Um, I hear that you kicked off your practice and your career working with clients and patients with lupus. So how
Yeah.
did that come about in the first place? How did you get started with this?
Oh, I love that question. I love this story. So, straight out of school, right? So, I'm a brand new practitioner and I had the opportunity to work with a company that was doing clinical trials connected with the Weill Cornell medical system. And so, as we were working with people with RA, rheumatoid arthritis, and lupus. So, right out of the gate, I got to be one of the managing practitioners in those trials. And it was so amazing to see in real life. Of course, new practitioner, I'm just diving in, getting to see how the body can respond to very simple, like shifts in food, shifts in mindset, shifts in actual habits, lifestyle. It was really cool to see. And our trials would run for 3 months. We would have this client for 3 months. And often we got the really advanced cases. And it was amazing to see the change that we could help our clients affect in that 3 months.
Wow.
So it was very fun. I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah. You were just gung ho thrown in the
Oh,
deep
heck yeah.
end for that one, but sounds like you really took the reins by took the
Yeah.
took the reins and
Loved
just
it.
went for it. So I love that. Um, wow, okay. And it sounds like, the foundational pieces, just like with many other autoimmune conditions, chronic conditions, are at play.
Yeah.
And impactful for this condition as well. So I hear that, this is also one of the more Googled autoimmune diseases on
Yeah.
the internet, but there's not very much information out there. Yeah, why do you think that is?
Because often the symptoms, like especially the fatigue, the joint pain, and then the rash, don't always come at the same time or don't always flare at the same time. So even when one is looking for a diagnosis, joint pain, where is the, practitioner going to go, the physician that is, trying to help you create a diagnosis for this? Of course, it's going to go to arthritis.
Mhm.
But then that pain is moving and that's not supposed to, or the client comes up with a fever, then there's a different, diagnosis possibly given to that or a different treatment. And then the rash begins to show and it's like, okay, are you putting something on your face that your skin is allergic to? Or it becomes a dermatological situation instead of looking deeper. So it's kind of a misunderstood dis-ease, if you will, because there's so many pieces to it that can be mistaken as other things. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's not really well understood.
Mhm.
So, especially how you and I work, we just dive deep and go, okay, why is the body doing this? And it really doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. But when one is looking for a diagnosis of lupus, or even if they're looking on Google to say, okay, these things are going on, my doctor's not giving me anything that I can relate to, I feel stuck. Can I figure this out on my own?
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons I believe that's one of the reasons why it's the most researched, is because it's not um it's kind of a harder one to diagnose.
Right. Yeah, because it can incorporate so many different factors,
Yes.
symptoms, and
And there are things that come
um,
and go that aren't together. You know what I mean? The symptoms
right.
aren't, they don't happen at the same time.
Hmm. Yeah. So how does this all come about? How does somebody develop um, lupus? And I've heard that medications can play a role. Is that the case?
Yes. And so, especially if you're listening to our conversation today and you're like, oh, I wonder, because I've got these symptoms and it looks like lupus, but I can't understand how I got it. Go on the Lupus Foundation website and do a search about the really looking for the medications that can cause lupus. There's an extensive list. Last time I looked at it, I think there's 36 or 38 different medications. And
Mm.
some of them are medications that are used to address some of these other autoimmune conditions that look like that can be misdiagnosed. Like if you actually have lupus, but you've been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and some of the immune modulating drugs that are used for rheumatoid arthritis can actually cause lupus all on its own. So you've kind of got a double whammy going on there.
Mm.
So do your research, really lean into the different medications that can cause this. Sometimes it's an immediate reaction, like you'll see it as soon as you get on that new med and your body's going, what just happened? Or it can be a slow grow after you've been on a med for quite some time, like even years.
Mm. Okay, that's good to
Yeah.
know. Um, Besides, medications, are there other um, factors at play that could potentially cause this?
Yeah. And a lot of the factors at play are the common other things that can cause other autoimmune type diseases. So when I say diseases, I want to say it's
Mhm.
dis-ease, simply because I feel like when things go out of whack in our body, that's when our body starts going, "Arr," and we start getting symptoms. So a distinct trauma in the body, whether it's you get really, really sick or there's actual, emotional trauma, something happens in the family, you're in a car wreck, somebody precious to you passes. If there's abuse that happens, Those things can all trigger an imbalance in the body. But for lupus, it can come on slowly, or it can be something that's just like, bang, here it is. And a lot of times when it's something like that, it is kind of triggered by a sickness or something that we've become exposed to that our body has no defenses against or very little. And
Mhm.
then the immune system goes awry. And then that's how it shows up in our body as, the symptoms that are comprised and then called or
Mm.
tagged
Mhm.
as lupus.
Okay. So it's kind of triggered by some tipping point sort of
Mhm.
event in some
Yep.
cases.
Yep.
So I'm curious in your practice and in your work with your clients, how have you seen this affect your clients? If you were to zoom out and kind of take a big picture of all the people that you have helped who have had lupus, um, what do they tend to all have in common?
One of the top level things is food sensitivities
Mm,
and an imbalance in the digestive system.
mm,
Yeah. I know it sounds weird because you would expect that to end up in like IBS or colitis or Crohn's or something like that. But it can actually end up in
mm.
enough imbalance in the body to come out as, the rash and the different symptoms that come from lupus.
Right. And that makes total sense. If there's a trauma or environmental exposures of some sort that
Mhm.
can trigger this GI distress, it's
Yeah.
all connected. So that makes total sense.
Yeah. It's curious
Um,
though. A lot of times when, we're doing the work together, there's not marked gastrointestinal symptoms
okay.
like constant diarrhea or, you know, pain associated with food or eating or stuff like that. Often that's very minimal.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Another thing we've seen as a commonality is toxicity.
Mhm.
And that can be one of the things that fires for the body, like from a medication, if lupus comes from a medication, is the toxicity, but also having an understanding around what the body is dealing with. It can be a bacteria, it can be some sort of a toxicity, but also having created, this is another thing I've seen, is if the body is having a histamine reaction and it's unable to break down the histamine in the digestive tract, like if our psoas gene is not working well and the enzyme needed to break that down, that can also be kind of a key factor for continued lupus.
Okay. So histamine response can be
Mhm.
component of this too.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, what also just in your work with your clients with lupus, what have you seen to be a really powerful tool to really help people through this?
Oh, I love that. So probably if we were going to pick one, it
Mhm,
would be finding your food sensitivities.
mhm,
Just right out of the gate, that's one of the most useful things to help to modulate or bring back some of the symptoms. The second thing would be really looking at the types of foods that you're eating and eat foods, lean into foods that are naturally antibacterial, antifungal. Um, if your body's okay with it, things like garlic and olive leaf extract, anything in the sulfur family. Oregano is an amazing one. Leaning into foods that can really help your body fight a bacterial overgrowth or a fungal overgrowth that could be feeding into this.
okay. Okay, great.
But top of level would be food sensitivities.
Yeah. Yeah, just bringing that overall inflammation down from the beginning
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
starting some of those things that are really triggering the body at the
Mhm. Yeah.
um what would you say is sort of a reasonable timeline for someone to expect to start to notice improvements in their condition with, help from a practitioner like you or someone else?
I love, love, love that question because a lot of times we think about when we have an autoimmune condition, it's going to take forever and ever, amen,
Mhm.
for us to get well.
Mhm.
So, especially with lupus, we can see marked change in 3 months. And I've seen, people really getting to the place where they feel like they're in sustainable remission at 6 months. And if they continue with their work at 9 months, at 12 months, at the 12-month mark, their body should be pretty darn solid.
Wow. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's encouraging. I mean,
Yeah.
that your changes can happen within the span of a few months.
Yeah.
Um,
We have to also consider, are there any outliers? Are there any kind of contingencies or other factors that are involved that we uncover in our work?
mm,
What else is there? Because if we have something really deep, like a heavy metals toxicity or something like that, that we have to really prep the body for before we address that, that can take a little bit longer.
mhm.
But just simple lupus, yeah, we can
Yeah.
see marked improvement fairly soon.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's great. How often do you see the heavy metals play a role in that?
There's a few times I've seen that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
we find an active virus that is a bugger to deal
Mhm.
with. It takes a little bit longer.
Mhm.
Um, or a bacterial overgrowth that just is being stubborn. Sometimes that can take a little bit more time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um, is there anything else about lupus um that's coming out that that you're eager to learn more about, or anything that is stumping you about lupus lately that more research is needed on? Anything else coming to mind as far as
I love this question. I love it because the one thing I'm so excited about is people are now being educated around the fact that lupus can be caused by medication.
yeah.
Um, that was something that we were seeing in the trials, but nobody talks about it. And it's on the Lupus Foundation site now. And I'm just so excited because that can be such a piece that's elusive for people and even practitioners that are working with other folks that have lupus. It's like, look at all the pieces, all the pieces.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think for me, there's a little bit more research I would love to, and for me, I'll just be honest. When I do research and then I take it into my practice, and what I've seen doesn't, what I've researched and what the expected outcomes, they don't happen. It doesn't um, ring true in clinical practice. That's when I'm like, okay, this is what should have worked. This is what we tried and what didn't work. Okay, why? What is sideways in the research? And then what is the body telling us? What is our clinical experience telling us? Because to me, that's what really matters. Does this work or not? It might look great in a white paper, but does it really work in real life? So
Yeah.
for me, I'm always going back to the clinical. What actually works? What actually doesn't work? How do we understand why? And then how do we understand then how to really be more effective using what we learned from that process?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And our clients and our patients are our best teachers and in their
Oh,
own bodies,
yes.
and we
Love it.
can learn so much from them as well. Well, thank you, Melissa, for your wisdom
Thank
today
you.
on this subject. Um, where can people find you to connect with you further?
So the best place to go is our new website, autoimmunerecovery.org. Make sure you put the .org back there. Um, And if you're like, okay, I'm ready to get busy, I want to really uncover what's driving this for me, I would totally book in for an introductory call. In that call, we get to just sit down and really hear your story. We get to hear what's going on for you. And we get to help you clarify what your goals are, really lean into, okay, what do you want to accomplish? And then are we a great fit to help you accomplish that? Because at the end of the day, our goal is your wellness. And if we're the ones to help you on that journey, awesome. If we're not, will actually help you clarify that so that you can take that information and find the practitioner that works best for you.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. This was great to chat with you today, and I
Thank
hope
you.
this is helping someone out there. So, have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll see you here for the next one.
Thank you, Robyn. Take care, everybody.